Hello, Brian. Welcome back. We are talking again about ThunderCats, and well, what a day! You've just launched Wave 7.
Yes,
Are you pleased?
I'm happy with it. I hope everybody else is. They finally get Snarf. So
Yes,
everybody that's
yes,
been waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting,
yes,
here he
yes,
is, and he can stand on his tail.
yes, yes. That's excellent. Um, Before we talk about Wave 7, I actually want to take a few steps back and quickly touch on Wave 6. Now, Wave 6 has been a sensitive subject for a few people, but also a celebrated subject for a lot of other people. Um, in the sense that we understand why these have been brought out. You've explained it before. But will these characters in the LJN side of the line, will they all be made? Like, in will we get a Panthera? Will we get a Tigra? Will we get a Jaga? All the mutants and so on? Because there's some people that would collect both lines, if I can put it like that, and would like one line to be complete. And some people say, I don't want to start collecting these because what if I'm not going to get the others? I've got the cartoon versions. I want the toy versions. I want all of the toy versions. Is that something you?
Yeah, I mean, there's an easy place for probably a wave two on them. As you get into some of those characters, they're not wildly different between LGN and what we've already released. Some are, some aren't. We've talked about it. I think it really comes back down to at how often and at the expense of what other figures or whatever. I will say that we're knee deep on the next few waves of regular ThunderCats. Okay. So we'll probably do let me rephrase that. At some point, we will definitely do a wave 2 LGN. Okay. But am I going to do, 26 characters in LGN colors? No, because it doesn't call for that to happen. It's like, oh, here it is again, but the brown is an ever so slightly different shade of brown. Like in the cases that there are significant differences, yeah, we're definitely looking at making a second wave of LGN in the future.
Okay. Now, has the fact that you've got the LJN options kind of influenced
LJN test shots?
Oh, gosh, already. Wow.
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
Yeah. So.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that.
There we go.
Excellent. That's fantastic.
Yeah, this is the clear one where you're like, oh man, look at that.
Yes, yes. With the fact that you've got, wow,
that bright orange with the blue.
Yes.
Can't go wrong with that. Right. Sorry.
Gosh, okay, now let me just, you've now floored me with that surprise. With the fact that you've got, in some of the previous releases, you've had LJN inspired weapons.
Yep.
Now that you've got the options of doing LJN only, has that influenced the way that you're going to do future releases, like Rotaro that's just come out? He has two different sets of vintage weapons, and neither of them are present in the cartoon side of him. Now, obviously, Rotaro is totally different in the LJN side. He's green and a very dark brown, and he's got other weapons. Is that something that you consider with future LJN releases and cartoon side releases, as to not to clash?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the first goal with the line is to go cartoon accurate first. And if they're in the cases where we've done some weapons that were specific to LJN, it's more like, do we have enough weapons? Well, then we can add it in. Or is that weapon so iconically associated with that character that we, without it feels absent. Okay. So, I mean, we're going to be leading cartoon first in almost all cases.
Okay. Every which wave do you think you're going to have LJN releases, and will they be all four of them in a wave, or will they be slotted in here and there?
They won't be slotted in. If we're going to do LJN, we'll make it a separate release, separate from everything else. But the first and foremost focus is going to be on the cartoon accurate.
Mhm.
And then LJNs are, those are for fun. We threw them in. Hey, who wants them? You know, it's not a, oh my God, now it's a divergent line and they're going to make 36 characters in LJN. It's more a fun way to also collect within the line.
Okay. Will you release exclusives that are LJN inspired? Is it a possibility?
You're leaning in on LJN hard here.
Well, I've got pages of questions.
Pages of questions. Like right now, like I said, other than maybe a second wave in the future, sometime there's not a whole lot of like, oh, okay, here's all the plans for LJN. The LJN is a fun moment. It's not a dedicated line with its own cadence at this point.
Okay. All right.
Pardon me.
Now, with regards to those samples that you showed off, the ThunderCats logo that's on Lionel, that was obviously from the toy itself, but the one on Chitara was more from the cartoon. What will be on her emblem? Will it be the toy version of the logo?
It'll be the toy version of the logo.
Okay, and then
because that is the correct answer.
Yes, that is the correct answer. Then there are other differences that we noticed. Those prototypes that you showed off in the video where you presented them, there were some tiny toy references in there that wasn't in the digital renders. Things like Chitara's boots were changed a little bit. Lino's belt was changed and his boots as well. Was that how they were going to go? Because those are more toy inspired than what was in the digital renders.
I believe that the renders are more accurate and the renders are the correct ones.
Okay. Now, with regards to the unproduced LJN characters.
This is an all
can you do it?
Interview.
Can you do it? Not really, but can you do it?
I can, theoretically, ones. Yes. Theoretically, yes, we can make unproduced LJNs. But like I said, right now, our first and foremost focus is to complete the animated line as promised.
Okay. Now, with regards to exclusives, why do you do exclusives only with Big Bad Toy Store for ThunderCats?
Has it only been with Big Bad?
Yes.
I think it's probably because Big Bad really likes ThunderCats. You know, we've done some exclusive. You know, we don't do a lot with other people. Entertainment Earth had a couple exclusives. They've been Turtles. So I think it just happens to be a coincidence. I don't think there's anything scientific behind it.
Okay. What is the date of the next exclusive? We just had one a few months ago, but we need to plan ahead.
You have to ask. Yoko would know the exact date. I know what it is. I don't know what the exact date is.
Next year, not this year. Okay, that says a lot. Thank you, Brian.
I think it might be. I think it might be sooner rather than later.
Okay. All right. Will they always?
I'm like trying to remember. Like I know yeah. I think it's sooner rather than later.
Okay. Will these exclusives always be a variant or a color change or something that glows in the dark, something that's different, like what?
Yeah. Generally speaking. If you want to collect the line, you want to be able to have access to all the figures. And I want everybody to have access to all the figures. When you've got a retailer exclusive by proxy, for whatever reason it may be, it makes it a little harder for people to get sometimes. Some people don't see it. Anybody that's dedicated will be like, oh, I just check out here versus checking out there. But for whatever reason, that I don't want it to be burdensome or crushed. So in almost all those cases, it is a variation of something that's already happened.
Okay. Now, that Frozen Lionel. Now he was really such a hit. I love that figure. It's so cool, and his color changing is brilliant. Now, one thing that I picked up on that figure itself, his eyebrows are red. Now, on the regular version, it's black, but in the toon, it's actually both. it is when it's a close up, you can see he's got red eyebrows, and then when it's a little bit further away, then he's back. Was that something that was done deliberately? Can we see a
Yeah, I
regular
mean,
with red?
obviously you don't just come up with red eyebrows for the heck of it. Yeah, it was. It also sets it apart a little bit from the other lino that you have. It's like, what are those things that make this more unique? That's still accurate, but makes it pushes it even that much further apart from the other lino you have.
The Tigra exclusive that we've just had, the invisible one, through Big Bad. What will the plastic be like? Is it going to be a problem in a few years? Is it going to become brittle? Is it going to go yellow? Is this a specific plastic that you've got?
No, it shouldn't. I mean, obviously, it's going to be a very similar plastic to what we have. We've done several clear figures in Ultimates and other lines, translucents and stuff. So it shouldn't be an issue. It shouldn't be a problem. Now if you would leave it outside in the backyard for 2 years, is it going to change colors? In that case, sure. But you can put anything outside for 2 years and it'll change colors. If it's in your shelf or anything else, it shouldn't. We haven't had any issues with that.
Okay. Will this Tigra have the armband on?
It's got the elbow pad. It's been remolded. It's got a whole new part, the correct part, actually, from beforehand. It has the elbow pad.
Okay, now let's jump to Wave 7 that you've revealed just a few days ago at the New York Comic Con. Was this always the lineup for Wave 7?
Yeah, it's been pretty much this for a while.
Okay. Now, I can stop bugging you about Snarf, so I'll find something else to bug you about. But tell us about Snarf. He's been such a sought-after character, and he's got 3 heads, quite expressive different heads, and he's got a tail, and he's got a second tail. Now, tell us about that second tail. How does it work?
Oh, you can swap
The one
out
he
the
stands
tail in the back joint and put in the new tail, and then it stands on a base so that he can be viewed as standing up. And it was just engineering where his weight of his body is and how big the base has to be. But it's like if Snarf's not standing up on his tail,
it's not.
Are you really not doing Snarf at all?
Yes. Is that tail? Can it articulate? Because it does look like there's like a bend somewhere in the middle of it, or is that just how it looks?
The regular tail, I think, has a piece of articulation, but I don't think the standing tail does because of it needs to be rigid. So I don't believe that there's a piece of articulation in there.
And his legs, does it the lower legs, do they like pull up? Because it does look like I don't know what you would call this,
the
lower side. Yeah, like the shoulder of his lower legs. But it does look like these are 2 separate pieces of his hind legs.
And this is where I'm going to go like, oh God, like, do I even how
like the hip? It's the hips.
I know the hip the hip clearly articulates and everything. Yes. Are there 2 sets of legs? I can't remember if we sculpted 2 sets of legs or not. If it's not in the render, then I think we figured out a way to make it solve in the actual articulation so his legs could be higher up.
Okay. Now he comes with a Sword of Omens and a claw shield as well. What version of the Sword of Omens is that? And is there a specific claw shield that's different from the regular one?
Yeah, it's different in that. So the Sword of Omens is one that you can fit in his mouth, so he can carry it. And then same thing with the claw shield, so that he can carry it, because he doesn't ever wear it, if I'm correct. He just carries it.
Yes.
We went back and forth because at one point we had a render of him like wearing the claw shield, and I'm like, wait, he doesn't ever put it on. Like, he just carries it. So he can carry the claw shield properly.
Okay. Then Willa. Now, what's the next question going to be? Are we going to get a sister?
Oh, are you going to get a sister? Of course you're going to get
her sister. Okay.
Yeah.
No, that's good, because everybody's asking.
I thought it was going to be a different question. I was like, are we really going to have that question? Okay. No. Willa. Yes.
Yes.
Yes, you're going to get a sister.
So we'll get Nada. Okay.
Yes.
she's got wonderful weaponry. Now, there's some things that I would just like to clarify with you in terms of her weaponry. Um, on the solicitations at New York Comic Con, it did look like one of the hands was actually stuck on the arrow. Was that just
Yeah, the one that's holding the arrow, yeah, it's actually molded as one piece. So when you snap it into her arm, it's on. So
okay?
that hand and arrow are one piece.
Okay. And then the string of the bow, is that bendable? Is that a wire or something?
It'll be elastic. Yeah, it'll be elastic.
Okay.
Yep.
And what is her height? Is she the same size as Chitara?
I haven't stood her up next to Chitara, but she's all of the figures are scaled appropriately. So
okay.
She's 12 inches tall.
No, she's not. She couldn't be.
No. No, she's scaled appropriately.
Okay. Have you thought about the other maidens, the generic ones that you always see in the cartoon, the ones that's in the background, of doing extra heads and then just offering?
We're gonna get Willa done first, then we'll maybe work on her sister. Then we can worry about maidens.
Okay. And then she's got a smiling face in there. Now she's regularly seen quite stern and
yeah,
stoic, but she does have a smiley face. Why did you choose that?
Well, it's the same as we were going through there and we're like looking at her different expressions. There's a lot that are very similar. There are some smiling moments, and it just gave that way. It's an obviously different head rather than it's like versus and it's like, all right, these really don't look that different. Okay. So we found some moments where she was actually smiling and happy, and we're like, all right, let's make that head.
Okay. And then you've added Bushy. Now a lot of people asked for Bushy, especially the moment that we saw her. They said, please, can we have Bushy? And well, you gave us Bushy. How does Bushy, can it fit onto her hand? Is it got a special way that she holds it to, or is it just it can fit anywhere or go anywhere? There's not a place to hold her. Well, to hold Bushy.
For anybody watching this right now, and I'm going to go like, I don't remember. And then they're going to be like, how can you not remember? You just launched it today. And it's like, no, I'm actually working on 2024. I don't remember what the solve was that we came back for it. I know we discussed it a couple different ways. I don't remember where we landed. That's not the answer. Probably everybody wants to hear me say, like, I don't even know what we're doing. I don't remember. I believe it just rests in her hand and holds. I don't believe that there's a peg because that would become problematic. I think she just rests in her hand.
Okay.
Now I'm going to go with 95% on that, but not 100%. So please, viewing public, I believe that is the correct answer.
Okay. Now let's move on to Rotaro. Now he looked a little bit skinnier on those prototypes, but he looks more bulkier in the renders. Is that so, or is it just what the photos presented?
I think it's probably just the way the photos presented. People shooting it into the case and whatever perspective. He's fat, and if you stick him next to Mongor, Mongor's gigantic too, so he doesn't look quite as big maybe standing next to him. But if you put him next to Willa, you'd be like, oh, he's huge. But he's big around.
Now he's got two heads. One is the stoic one and the more expressive one. His weapons, I touched on it earlier, but now you've got effects with him. Two of those go obviously onto the blades itself. Then there's other ones. How do they work? Do they plug into the eye and then shoot forward, or how does it work? Because it does look like there's like a peg at the end of the laser.
I think they plug in. I think they plug in on one side of them.
Okay. Now there was one thing that we did see at Comic-Con, and that is that remote control that he created the Mew tank with, but it's not on the solicitations. Is there any reason? Has it been taken off?
I'll have to double check. I didn't think it was taken off. I wonder if it got missed. I'll double check that. See, it's my to-do list. This is why we have these meetings. Check on, hold on. See, hold on. See, this is how it works, kids. This is how the sausage gets made. Hey, you messed up. Oh yeah. All right. Hold on.
So it was mentioned that he would be 65, but he was now
Yes.
advertised as 55.
Was he?
Yes.
That might be a mistake on our end. His tooling, because of the way his skirt, his jacket, and everything comes out, his tooling, we fought back and forth with it for a long time. His tooling just kept coming back at just ridiculous prices, and so we were just like, last I remembered, and what I was telling people at New York was that unfortunately he was going to have to be 65. And it's not an obvious thing. Like, it's not like, oh, where when you pick up a Mumra and you're like, oh, okay, I get it. I understand why this one is this. Like, Mongor takes up a ton of space, but his tooling wasn't crazy like Rataro's was. I'm gonna have to double check that. I thought that we had made the decision about a month ago that we had to move to 65 on him, that we just couldn't find another way to cost, value engineer is what they say, but value engineer it down to get it to the right price point. But if it went out at 55 and we're already selling it at 55, we'd be hard pressed to raise the price. So we might have messed up.
So people should go out and buy it right now.
$10. What's that?
People should go out and buy them right now before the price goes up.
We can't do that. Once it's out, it's out.
I'm teasing. Now, talking about Mongor, did you think of including a small version of him?
We've talked about a bunch of different things, but once again, it's another one where he's pretty big. His tooling's pretty expensive. His scythe is really big. The effects on his scythe are big. I felt like we landed in a pretty good place with him, but a little one would have been fun.
Yeah, a little one would have been fun. A big one as well. Now, talking about a big one, we talked about this last time, about the supersized vinyl figures. Have you had any discussions about ThunderCats in that size?
Not yet. Not yet. I know you want a supersized Snarf to take home.
A flocked one.
Pet his hair. Yeah. No, not yet. Not yet. We've got a bunch of other supersized we got to get done first.
Okay. Now back to Mongor. A lot of comments has been seen about the fur texture on his body, and also like with Snarf. Some people say it's perhaps a little bit too detailed. Other people say it should be more cartoon-like, more flat, less detailed. But what's your opinion on it? Because I suppose it's got to do with the character itself and how it presents itself.
Yeah, I think when you get into those matte paints and everything, they can, if you have too much detail, it fights. I felt like we found, especially with Mongor, found a nice middle ground where it's still obviously fur. You don't want to go to the extreme where all of a sudden it feels like a Bruce Timm Batman, where it's supposed to be fur, but it's just got like one tuft here and like one tuft there. We were trying to find that nice middle ground where it still had texture instantly recognizable as fur, maybe for the person that doesn't know the character inside out. But then when you put that flat purple across it, it's like, okay, no, this is cartoon and it still feels right. In the cases at New York, obviously we're going to have downlighting on it, so you're going to see the shadows a little bit more. I think people will actually be really happy with it. I don't think it's going to be something that's going to be distracting for people. And we definitely didn't want to get into that Bruce Timm animated series look on it, which is the opposite extreme.
We've talked about it before. It's pictures are very deceiving, especially when people take photographs of the prototypes. And,
especially when it's a 3D output that's been sanded and then hand sprayed and then glued together with super glue and blue tack, standing in the case going. When people are like, "Oh, you could have posed him a little better," I'm like, "Dude, the leg is super glued in. Like, I can't move it now."
What do you do with those prototypes once you've displayed them? Do you have a shelf where you put them all up? Do you destroy them?
They're mine.
Oh, they're yours. Okay. Okay, so you don't get the toys off the shelf. You
Same thing. Like all this stuff, like Josh already was like, "Yo, that's mine." I was like, "Come on, man!" Like, all right, so we have to divvy them up. But yeah, generally we keep it all.
Okay.
And I don't put up a lot of the prototypes just because the final toys look better.
Okay.
But I keep them all.
Okay. No, just
Because we're
curious.
all collectors here, aren't we?
Yes.
This
Yes,
is a
we are.
safe space. I can talk
Yes.
about the fact that I keep all
Yes.
these things, right?
Yes. Okay. Now let's talk about the future. I know you're working on 2024 now. The last time you said you were working on wave 10, and that was in May. So which wave are you working on now?
Which wave am I working on now? I think we're still, yeah, 11's planned, but I think we're still working on 10 in terms of like sculpt and stuff.
Okay. Okay. Now with the digital renders, that's now these last few waves we've been presented with them. Is that an easier way to sell across the figures versus having a prototype made up?
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about doing physical photography, it requires then for us to finish the sculpt, output it, have somebody paint it, then because they're 3D outputs, they don't really bend and move the way articulated plastic would. So you've got to basically in your mind make up what you think the pose is going to be, then output it, then paint it for that, especially like the bends in the knees and stuff like that. Like you can make them move, but they don't have the same life to them.
Yeah.
And then we've got to photograph it and color correct it and everything else. Since these days, this line is 3D sculpted, it's just a much faster workflow to go from 3D sculpt, paint the 3D sculpt because we have to do that for the factory anyways, and then we can pose it accordingly. So I think at this point it's pretty much for anything that's a future project as opposed to an existing product. I think most everybody does renders at this point across every company. When you get to things that are something's coming in hand, like a reaction figure, then generally we'll photograph the final. But when we're talking about something that hasn't been tooled yet, the final product works much better and faster as a render.
Okay. Now, the twins are outstanding.
I know the twins are outstanding, but I know that they're happening.
Okay, they are definitely happening. That's the thing that we need to get across to people is you don't have to go and buy them on the secondary market at excessive prices. You can get them from Super7 one of these days.
You got your Snarf this wave?
Yes.
Next wave?
Okay, now talking about next wave. Are you going to split them up and be different from what they were released like before? Or are you going to put them together?
No, the goal is to have a Wily kit release and then later a Wily cat release and have more stuff that's specific to each character and the adventures they've gone on so that there's a little bit more robust storytelling around them as individuals.
Okay, that's excellent. Yes. Now that scale, obviously that's the smaller people.
Yeah.
So
they got to come with more stuff, right?
Yeah. So there's other smaller people also. Well, children-sized people, characters in the cartoon, like a young Lino or the ThunderCats or even Luna from the Lunatics. You are going to continue creating characters in that scale, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Young Lino, not around the corner, but some of the other ones maybe.
Okay. Will you make the Lunatics? Please confirm or deny it. You can make them.
Yes, we can make them. Okay. Yes, we can make them.
Okay. Something changed recently, and some of the weapons are a bit more silver in their paint than a muted gray. Was that a decision that you made to have them be more silver than the gray that, like Lino sword? With Mirror Lino, it's like a bright silver, but the first version is more muted gray.
I would need to double check all that. I thought that we'd been fairly consistent. It may also just be that the silver we're getting is not quite as muted. I would have to look into that. I think we went with a muted silver in the beginning. I thought we were still using a muted silver, but if we're getting slightly more metallic, in a vacuum, when I get them to approve, I'm definitely looking at that going, okay, it's silver, it feels right, it looks good. I'm not necessarily going, okay, what did wave one silver look like? If it is indeed different, that would be the first time anybody's mentioned anything to me about it. So I'll have to go back and look. And if we've gotten a little too shiny, we'll probably go back to slightly more matte.
Okay.
But ideally, they're consistent.
Yeah. Now, you would like to expand this. Well, I would like you to expand this ThunderCats universe and also make characters from the comic books and maybe from the 2011 series. You mentioned before that if you can prove that a character belongs to ThunderCats, then you will be able to make it. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So it is a possibility that you can go many different places.
Yes.
Okay.
And there's some cool stuff coming. I don't know if it's specific to your question, but yeah, there's a lot of room in ThunderCats still. There's a lot of room. There's a lot of stuff that hasn't been done.
Okay. Now we've seen some updates on the tank and that it's currently in production. Is that the final one?
The thing?
Good heavens, it's big. Wow. It's massive.
So, a couple little things like this thing is not 100% laying right. So that's being tweaked in production, but
wow, that's beautiful.
Gigantic tank, glow in the dark eyes. Oh, let's see here. But yes, it is in production. We're making some running tweaks as we go. But I mean,
Brian, you look very small compared to that tank. Wow.
There's a couple tiny tweaks.
Massive.
A lot of people are asking the thing that we changed. So it is this piece underneath here that we added so that you cannot see through here to the inside of the mouth. That was the piece that we changed, but you know, it's
good heavens.
It's
gorgeous.
It is in production and ready to go. I realize you can't see all the paint on the inside there as easily, but
wow, it's brilliant.
The tank is here, and got your Thundrillium.
Wow.
Got Samaflange.
Yes. I'm not going to comment on that. There might be children watching as to what is the Samaflange.
Yeah, there's the Samaflange.
Wow, that's brilliant. And then,
but yeah, it's actually in production. Like I said, the only real issue we have right now, and it's because it's not an issue. It's an issue on this sample. It's not an issue on the previous samples. This particular one, the doors are just slightly misaligned, but that has to do with how they've laid in the pin. So they just need to make sure they lay in the pin straight. Obviously, nothing would get out of QC where those things didn't match perfectly anyways. But other than that, it's really, really 100% on point and great. And they'll start leaving the factory in the middle of November, and they will go all the way through December. So it'll be about a 6-week process of them leaving the factory. Okay. Then they'll get on boats and come across, and we'll be mailing them to people. But it is in production. It is going.
Okay, and Mandora, we also saw a beautiful sample of her. I suppose she's going into production any day now.
She's been in production for a while. So, I don't know the exact moment that those are landing. But they'll be here sooner. Because she's been in production for a while. Okay. And same thing with the electro charger.
Okay. Yeah. She's got to have a bike.
That's the whole point. Base cop.
Okay, now I'm going to wind down quickly. Are we gonna get wave 3 reaction anytime soon?
Yes, you are gonna get wave 3 reaction. It will be a little bit of a wait still, but wave 3 is in process.
Okay.
So it'll be, I think, a little bit after San Diego 23.
Okay.
Which sounds like probably forever to
Yes.
everybody watching. And then for us, it's like, okay, like we have to be so far into it already. It's like, I don't know if we're working on stuff right now. And I'm like, I don't think it's going to make New York Comic-Con 2023. So
Goodness.
I realize for everybody else, they're like, oh, this is coming tomorrow, right? I'm like, we are so far, we have to be so far ahead of things. It's like, it's crazy.
And then SilverHawks is all still in production. Well, not in production, but finalizing everything before it goes into production.
Wave 2 is ahead of wave 1. Wave 2 is I believe is in production. If it's not, it's any day now.
Okay.
Wave 1's still supposed to leave before Chinese New Year. I am nervous that it is not, but it should. Wave 2 will leave well before Chinese New Year. Wave 2 is so much further ahead than wave 1, frustratingly so.
But we're getting new toys, so it's coming.
Yeah, just feel my pain on this one.
I do.
It drives me crazy. We're getting there. When it's all said and done, we can recount the trials and tribulations of SilverHawks Wave 1. And
like we did with ThunderCats.
And the impacts on SilverHawks Wave 2, and then the rise of SilverHawks Wave 2.
We'll get there. Well, thank you so much, Brian, for taking the time. I appreciate it.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
And
yeah, no, thank you. Obviously, everybody. Hopefully a few of these sneak peeks were cool for you.
Yes, it was. It was.
Why
was the tank not at New York Comic Con? Was it just too big?
It doesn't fit in the case.
I thought so.
It's so big it can't fit in the case. I mean, like I said, this thing,
it's massive.
It's gigantic and amazing. I mean,
brilliant.
That snapping sound as it clanks closed. This guy's got to climb up a mountain.
That's excellent. Well, thank you so much, Brian.
Thank you.
We'll catch up again very soon.
All right. We can talk about LJN some more.
Yes, we can. Have a great day. Thanks, Brian. Okay.